Hello, how are you? Carolina Sarmienta from the news from the Autonomous Region in Asturias, the TPA. She's in the second row. I wanted to ask you how you think we should face up to the problem of some tourist areas, such as the example of the Mediterranean area, where there's an increase in the number of jellyfish, for example. And this is a problem that is becoming more serious and is reaching colder waters, such as our waters in the Cantabrian Sea. Thank you.
Is the question you're asking, is the problem with tourists or with the jellyfish? or both? You mean that the number of jellyfish may discourage tourists? Is that the question?
I would like to know what your opinion is on how you think the public administration should face up to this problem of trying to coexist with the animal species and human species, and the economic interest and the environmental interest, how that can be combined.
Well, the jellyfish were here first. We are newcomers on a planet that they have occupied for literally hundreds of millions of years. The question should be, can jellyfish learn to live with us? But actually, we have so disturbed the ocean that there are places today that are more favorable to like an abundance, a superabundance of jellyfish, where there were animals that would eat the jellyfish in the past, like some of the sea turtles and some of the fish. We've stripped the ocean of many of the creatures who would otherwise maintain a better balance with not just jellyfish, but many other things as well. So you say, is it a question of the economy or the environment? They're not separate. To have a healthy economy, you have to have a healthy environment. And increasingly, for there to be people who have prosperity, the economy, if you will, when that declines, so does the environment. So you need a healthy environment means healthy people, and the converse is also true. It's learning that it isn't either or. Our entire existence, first of all, depends on maintaining the natural world with things such as water, air, space, the oxygen we breathe. We don't make it, we consume it from the natural world. And you know, in the past, we did not know that. We did not understand. We didn't even know what air was going back 1,000 years ago, or even 500 years ago. But now we know. To maintain everything we care about, the economy, health, security, we must make peace with the natural world. Protect it as if our lives depend on it, because they do.
Tenemos una pregunta aquí.
We have a question here in the first row. Good afternoon, Sylvia. Guillermo de Fuentes from radio station. In the last few years, the extreme right has become more powerful in some of the countries that are most powerful in the world. Donald Trump, the president of the USA, for example, who is very much against the existence of climate change. What consequences could this have in the short term when people with such influence, such as Donald Trump, makes these types of statements?
I often am asked, do I believe in climate change? And I say, it's not a matter of believing or not believing. As a scientist, I do something anybody can do and what everyone should do. You look at the evidence. So I don't argue. I just open my eyes, open my mind and say, look what's happening. The evidence is all around us. Children can see it. Politicians can see it, but some have chosen to make it a political matter. It is not political. We're all in this together. So we must use our common sense and do what a child would do. Ask questions. How do we know that polar ice is melting? How do we know that the climate is changing? The evidence is right there. We can read it. And it is not a left or right issue. We are all residents of the same planet. And what we do or fail to do right now, and the 10-year framework is likely a reasonable time frame. If we could only have started making better choices 10 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, but we didn't know. Now we do. There's no excuse anymore for allowing the planet to degrade further. That means everything we care about degrades as well.
Good afternoon. Congratulations from La Voz de Galicia. I'm from Galicia, which is to the northwest of Spain, very close to Asturias. And this summer, we've seen in our seas tropical fish. And we've also seen whales, which have come back home, fortunately. And therefore, I wanted to ask you, Sylvia, what is happening to fish and what is happening to mammals? Are they if they're changing their migratory routes? And also I wanted to ask you about the size of fish, because I've heard you say once that fish are not as big as they used to be. You've said, for example, in the past that this has happened in the case of Miro.
Yes, with Miro, grouper, with cod, with tuna, with swordfish. The fish markets today are selling babies because the grown-ups are, the big old fish are largely already taken. And yes, there is a change in the temperature of the ocean and the land, and it affects all of life. We see creatures who, unlike humans, who can live in cold places or warm places because we put on clothes and air condition or heat our homes. But fish can't do that. They have to respond, as do birds, as do trees, and all the rest of life. They largely are at the mercy of whatever the climate, the weather, the circumstances are. Now, birds can migrate and fish can migrate, and they are doing just that. We are witnessing unprecedented disruption in human societies as well as in the rest of life on Earth. We can look in the mirror if you want to answer the question, why? We are the causative action. Now, of course, changes happen over long periods of geological time. Ice ages have come, ice ages have gone. There are many times in the past when the planet has been warmer than it is now, and also times when it has been a lot colder. But these changes occur at a stately geological pace, and humans, during our time, and animals that go far back before we arrived on the planet, have adjusted. Some who can't adjust ultimately disappear. The real question for us is, will we be able to survive the changes that we are causing? Most of us care about ourselves, our species, our future, but we're taking all of the rest of life on Earth along with us. Life, one way or another, will go on with us or without us. But I think our goal and our opportunity is to stabilize the decline that we now are experiencing that started to accelerate on the order of 2 centuries ago. As our numbers increased, as our technologies enabled us to consume the natural world, cut the trees, take the whales, take the fish, change the chemistry of the atmosphere, build dams that alter the waterways, just changing the nature of nature. Only humans can do this, and only humans can see what the problems are and take action while we still have time.
Next question. Yes, good afternoon. I'm Jaime Martin from the EFE station or agency. Taking into account your words and some words, the prize for the award for communications from the Princess of Asturias Awards from this year, Ms. Arma Guillermo Prieto said. She said there was reasons for optimism in journalism. Are there reasons for journalism to deal with the problems of our seas and oceans?
I am an optimist personally, but for good reason, on all fronts. I tell children that they are the luckiest generation to come along because they're armed with knowledge that could not exist when I was a child. That's true across disciplines, whether it's science or art or the social interactions, certainly in communication. We have the capacity to connect with others, learn from others, and we can do it instantly. When there's a problem on one part of the planet, that news spreads globally, instantly, whether it's fires or famine or war, or good news as well. So as we discover what to do, solutions, the ability to communicate what we can do in terms of alternative energy, in terms of the health issues that are arising, knowing that most of the oxygen we breathe is generated in the ocean. That means we better take care of the ocean, be careful of what we put into the sea and what we take out of the ocean. We need the ocean to continue doing what it has done throughout our whole history, given us life. Now we have to give back. But communication is truly the key. Knowing is the key. And you cannot know if you don't have that information that is there, but communicated widely. You can't care if you don't know. And if you don't care, nothing is going to change. So I'm really encouraged by the ability, at least, to look at problems, communicate them, and solve them. I'm a little discouraged because we have headlines about sports. We have headlines about art. We are so focused on our own human activities that we sometimes fail to acknowledge that we're a part of nature, and that nature is in trouble, therefore we are in trouble. We should have daily updates on the state of the ice in the polar areas. We should have daily updates on what's happening to CO2 in the atmosphere or the capture of CO2 in the ocean. What's the rate of acidification in the ocean? So how are the fish doing, really? People should want to care. The knowledge is there, but people generally are not aware of how much trouble we are truly in because of the decline of the natural systems. So there needs to be increasingly effective communication about our place in the world and what we can do to do what it takes to protect our economy, our health, our security, and most importantly, our existence.
Hello, Jorge Garcia from the Europa Press Agency. Reading your statements, you said that you didn't eat fish. When did you take that decision and why?
Well, I come from a family dedicated to consuming ocean wildlife. I mean, we lived not too far from the ocean in New Jersey. I fell in love with the ocean when I was knocked over by a wave when I was 3 years old. We used to go catching fish, clams, crabs, whatever. But part of the change came about as I got to see life in the ocean as wildlife, just like birds, just like all the mammals on the land. We have done nothing to put them where they are. All we do is take them. You know, we think of it as harvesting the sea, but we don't plant the fish, we don't cultivate the fish, we simply gather them out of the ocean. We thought, and this has brought about a change for me, as a child, that the ocean was too big to fail, that we could put anything into it or take anything out of it that we wanted. But in my lifetime, I've witnessed a 90% decline in creatures such as tunas, cod, the miro, you name it. If it's on our plate, we have done a very effective job of extracting them faster than they can reproduce. Now, we aspire to sustainable use of ocean wildlife, but we have not been successful at doing so because the trend of decline continues. And it really seriously began to be an issue in the 1950s, which is when I began to be awakened to, well, maybe for me to consume a fish that has taken 30 or 40 or 50 years to grow doesn't really make sense. There are many things I can eat. I don't have to eat that big fish, or even the little fish that only live to be 20 years old. A chicken we take when it's a few months old. Cows we take when they're 2 years old or so, and they eat plants. A very short food chain for most of the animals that we cultivate. Sunlight plants cow, sunlight plants pig, sunlight plants chicken. But for a tuna, here's sunlight plants little fish right on up the food chain, and way down the line, you get a big tuna with thousands of pounds of plants to make a pound of tuna. Whereas to make a pound of chicken, it's about 2 pounds of plants. So it's just my mind saying, if I want to eat animals, they're animals that have a lighter impact than eating wild fish that are top carnivores, way beyond lions and tigers, eagles and owls. They're top carnivores. It takes a lot of groceries to make a tuna. It doesn't take so many to make a chicken. So basically, I don't eat animals anymore, but I've done more than my share in my lifetime. But now that I know, when I have a choice, I choose to be part of the solution. With 7 billion creeping up toward 8 billion people, we have to be mindful that we do have choices. I don't tell people what to eat or not eat, but by example, I just know, because here I am. And I don't eat fish anymore. But some people say you have to eat fish to stay healthy. No, maybe we have to not eat quite so many fish in order to have a planet that is healthier than it is now.
Next question, please. Hello, Elena Choren from the Nueva España newspaper. I wanted to ask you, when you received this award here in Asturias, whether you've considered including the Asturian coast or the Cantabrian Sea as a hope spot on which you're working on the Mission Group project.
That would be a dream come true. But the way the idea for hope spots works is that people in an area see a place that they know and love and care about, and they want to improve its condition. And they nominate through Mission Blue and through the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, IUCN. They review the proposals, and very few get turned down, but there are certain qualities that you look for. Are people really motivated to do something? Why is this place a place that matters? Those are the things that when you nominate a hope spot, you fill out a form and say, here's why, and here's what I'm going to do, what we're going to do, to make an effort to understand this area, explore it, and send information up to the website that will be shared with others. And when you have a problem, have you found a solution? Share your solutions with others. Right now, there are more than 100 places around the world forming a network of hope spots, but much more needs to be done, especially in the high seas beyond national jurisdiction. That is about half of the world. For me, that is one big blue hope spot. But it takes more than one community. It takes communities around the world to join together to say, we have to take care of this global commons where most of the oxygen on the planet is generated, where much of the carbon dioxide is taken up. The deep sea, we need to explore it, understand it, and take care of it. It really is the primary system that holds the planet steady. Now we have to do our part to give back. Instead of taking all the time, think about what we can give to make the ocean better than it is now. I witnessed this kind of decline, where there's half the coral reefs gone, 90+% of the tuna's gone, the cod, here's where they were, here's where they are. The acidification of the ocean, it's been holding steady for gazillions of years. Now it's changing. The chemistry of the ocean is changing because of what we're putting in, but also what we're taking out, disrupting the natural cycles in the sea. So, I mean, I could get really depressed, but armed with knowledge and the ability to communicate the status, that we have time, but not a lot, to be witnesses, all of us, and then individually and collectively take action that will turn it in the other direction.